The smell was the first thing that made him pause. Not strong, not obvious, just wrong. A faint, sour sweetness lingering beneath the polished scent of fresh paint and lavender cleaner. Ethan Cole stood frozen at the top of the basement stairs, his hand still resting on the light switch. And for just a second, he considered pretending he hadn't noticed, because deep down, he already knew. Whatever was down there wasn't supposed to be found. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part, he built that basement himself. So the question isn't just what was hidden there, it's this. Why would a man who married for love need to hide a body for insurance? And how long had it been there? It didn't start with suspicion. It started with a love story people envied. Ethan Cole was the kind of man everyone trusted. Calm, thoughtful, meticulous. He worked as a structural engineer, someone who understood foundations, pressure points, and what it took to keep things from collapsing. He met Lila Monroe at a charity art exhibit. She was vibrant where he was reserved, expressive where he was controlled. She laughed loudly, spoke passionately, and filled every room she walked into. He was drawn to her instantly, and she, somehow, to him. Their relationship moved quickly, but not recklessly, at least not on the surface. Dinner dates turned into weekend trips. Weekend trips turned into late-night conversations about the future, and within a year, they were married. Friends said they balanced each other. Families said they completed each other. But even in those early days, something felt off. But balance can also mean tension, and tension can break. At first, the cracks were invisible, small things. Lila would mention that Ethan didn't like unexpected visitors, that he preferred things exactly where they should be, that he sometimes watched her, not lovingly but carefully, as if he were measuring something. But she brushed it off. Everyone has quirks, everyone has habits, right? But then came the basement. The house itself was perfect. Quiet neighborhood, clean streets, just far enough from the city to feel private, but not isolated. Ethan insisted on renovating the basement himself. No contractors, he said. I want it done right. Lila didn't argue. At first, she even found it attractive, his precision, his attention to detail. But as weeks turned into months, something shifted. He stopped letting her go down there at all. At first, it was casual. Dust everywhere, not safe yet. Then firmer. I said, don't go down there, Lila. And eventually, locked. He installed a heavy door at the top of the stairs, then a keypad, then a second lock. That's when the unease began to settle in her chest, because love doesn't need that many barriers, and secrets don't usually come with security systems. But what she did next changed everything. One afternoon, while Ethan was at work, Lila stood at the top of the basement stairs. The keypad blinked quietly, waiting. She told herself it was nothing, that she was overthinking, but her hand still moved. She tried a few combinations, birthdays, anniversaries, nothing. Then she paused, because Ethan wasn't random. He was calculated, predictable, careful. So she entered the date they first met. The keypad beeped, unlocked, and just like that, the line between curiosity and danger disappeared. But what she found down there wasn't what she expected. At first, it looked normal, too normal. Clean floors, fresh paint, shelving units perfectly aligned. No tools left behind, no signs of ongoing work, just finished, like a project that had already been completed. But something felt off. There were no windows. The air felt heavy. And then she saw it, a section of the far wall, slightly different from the rest. The paint was the same, the texture almost identical, but not quite. Her heart began to pound. Slowly, she stepped closer, reached out, knocked. Solid. Except for one spot, a hollow echo. She froze, because suddenly, that faint smell made sense. But what she did next would define everything that followed. She grabbed a nearby tool, a metal crowbar resting neatly on a shelf, almost like it had been placed there on purpose, waiting. She hesitated, just for a second, because once she started, there was no going back. And then she pulled. The crack cracked, not loudly, but enough. A thin line splitting through the surface, dust falling, her breath catching, and then a sound behind her, soft, measured, deliberate. You weren't supposed to come down here. Her blood ran cold. She turned slowly. Ethan stood at the bottom of the stairs, silent, watching, not angry, not shocked, just disappointed. And that was far more terrifying, because anger is reactive. Disappointment, that means he expected this. That means he planned for it. Lila's heart shook. What is this? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He stepped forward, one step at a time, calm, controlled, just like always. It's not what you think, he said quietly. But that's what they always say, right before everything falls apart. Lila tightened the grip on the crowbar. What's behind the wall, Ethan? Ethan stopped just a few feet away, close enough now, too close. And then he said something that didn't make sense. At least now I know. Lila's stomach dropped. Know what? Ethan tilted his head slightly, studying her, like a problem he'd been waiting to solve. Whether you'd be loyal. Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. "What are you talking about?" she whispered, but he didn't answer directly. Instead, he glanced at the cracked wall, then back at her. "You weren't supposed to open it yet," he said. Yet. That word hit harder than anything else, because it meant timing mattered. It meant this wasn't an accident. It meant there was a plan, and Lila had just disrupted it. But what he said next changed everything. "There's someone behind that wall," Ethan said. Her breath stopped. "But they're not who you think." And just like that, the mystery deepened. Because if it wasn't what she thought, then what was it? And more importantly, why did her husband sound so calm about it? If you're watching this and you think you already know where this is going, you don't. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end of part 2, because what's behind that wall isn't just a secret, it's a contingency plan. Lila's hands trembled. "Move," she said. Ethan didn't. "Lila, I said move." For the first time, his expression shifted. Not fear, not panic, something else. Calculation. And slowly, he stepped aside, giving her a clear path to the wall, almost like he wanted her to see, like this moment had always been inevitable. Lila swallowed hard, then drove the crowbar back into the crack, pulled, harder this time. The wall gave way, pieces breaking, falling. The smell intensified instantly, stronger now, undeniable. And then, a shape, wrapped, still. Her vision blurred, her knees nearly gave out, because deep down, she already knew. But knowing and seeing are two very different things. And just before the final piece of the wall collapsed, Ethan spoke again, softly, almost gently. I did it for us. And that's when Lila realized this wasn't just about what was behind the wall. This was about what kind of man she had married and how far he was willing to go to make sure nothing ever threatened their perfect life. The wall finally broke open, and what she saw didn't just shatter her reality, it rewrote it completely. The first thing Lila noticed was the stillness. Not just the kind of stillness that comes from something being lifeless, but the kind that feels preserved, intentional, wrong. The body wasn't decayed the way she expected. It wasn't skeletal. It wasn't even fully decomposed. It was wrapped tightly in thick, clear plastic, layer upon layer, sealed with almost surgical precision, like someone had taken great care to slow time itself. Lila staggered back, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. No, no, no. Her voice cracked under the weight of what she was seeing. Behind her, Ethan didn't move, didn't rush to explain, didn't try to stop her from looking, because this was part of it, the reveal, the moment everything changed. But what they discovered next made this even darker. Lila forced herself to look again, closer this time, because something about it didn't feel random. It felt intentional, like evidence. Her eyes scanned the plastic, and that's when she saw it. A label, small, precise, dated. Her stomach dropped, because the date was from years before they met. Slowly, she turned toward Ethan. "Who is that?" Her voice was barely audible now. Ethan exhaled slowly, as if he had been waiting for this question. "That," Ethan said, "is my insurance." The words hit harder than the sight. "Insurance against what?" she whispered. Ethan stepped forward, finally closing the distance between them. "Against betrayal." A cold silence filled the room, and suddenly, everything started to click. The locks, the secrecy, the control. This wasn't just a hidden body. This was leverage. But how? And how against who? "You're insane," Lila said, her voice trembling. Ethan shook his head slightly. "No, I'm prepared." And that's when the real story began to unravel. Because the body behind that wall wasn't just a victim, it was part of a system, a method, a contingency plan built long before Lila ever entered his life. Years earlier, before he met her, Ethan was in another relationship. Her name was Claire. And unlike Lila, Claire asked questions. Too many questions. She noticed things, patterns, inconsistencies. And one night, she confronted him. No one knows exactly what happened after that, but Claire disappeared. No reports, no investigation, no trace, because Ethan made it so. But instead of disposing of the body, he kept it, not out of sentiment, not out of guilt, but out of strategy. Because a missing person can be ignored, but a body is proof, and proof is power. "You see," Ethan continued calmly, "people only act against you when they think they're safe." Lila stared at him, horrified. "So you kept her in case someone threatened you?" Ethan nodded slightly. "Or in case someone needed to be reminded what happens when they do." Her chest tightened. This wasn't just paranoia, this was calculation. "And now?" she asked, his gaze locked onto hers. "Now, I needed to know if I could trust you." The weight of those words settled in slowly, painfully. "This was a test?" she said. "Not a test, a confirmation." Lila felt something inside her break. Because love doesn't come with conditions like this. Love doesn't come with hidden bodies. But what happened next made everything even worse. Sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Lila's head snapped toward the stairs. Ethan didn't react, which meant he already knew. "You called them," Lila said, her voice shaking. Ethan didn't deny it. "I had to," he said calmly. Her heart dropped. "Why?" And then he said the one thing she never expected. "Because now it's official." The realization hit her like a wave. "You set me up." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Think about it," he said. "You broke the wall. You uncovered the body." Her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. "You're the one holding the crowbar." The room spun, because suddenly she wasn't just a witness, she was part of the crime scene. But what the police found next changed the case completely. The sirens stopped outside, doors slammed, footsteps approached. Lila's mind raced. "This isn't over," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, almost sympathetically. "It was over the moment you came downstairs." The basement door burst open, officers flooded in, commands were shouted, weapons drawn, chaos. But through it all, Ethan remained calm, controlled, until one officer stepped forward and said something that no one expected. "Ethan Cole, you're under arrest." For the first time, he looked surprised. "On what grounds?" he asked. The officer didn't hesitate. "For the murder of Claire Donovan." Lila's breath caught, because that name had just been confirmed. Real, documented, not just a secret, a case. And then came the twist that shattered everything. "We've been watching you for months," the officer continued. Ethan's composure cracked just slightly. "Your insurance," the officer added, "it didn't protect you, it exposed you." Because while Ethan thought he was in control, someone else had already started putting the pieces together. A neighbor reported strange deliveries years ago, unusual renovations, odd behavior. It wasn't enough at the time, but it was enough to start a file. And files, they don't forget. Lila collapsed to the floor, overwhelmed, because in the end, Ethan's greatest strength was also his downfall. He kept the one thing he should have destroyed. And that decision cost him everything. As he was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at Lila, not with anger, not with regret, but with something far more disturbing: acceptance. Because in his mind, the plan still worked, just not the way he expected. If you've made it this far, you already know this wasn't just a crime, it was a system. And stories like this remind us how easily control can hide behind something that looks like love. If you want more deep, psychological, true crime stories like this, make sure you subscribe, because the next one might be even darker. Lila never went back to that house. She didn't need to. Some places don't just hold memories, they hold truths you can't unsee. And some people aren't who they pretend to be. There's something far more dangerous, something patient, something prepared. And sometimes, they don't just plan for love, they plan for what happens when it ends. If you believe Ethan was more dangerous because of how calm and calculated he was, or because of how long he got away with it, which is scarier to you? If you believe keeping the body was pure strategy and not madness, would you call him a genius or something far worse? If this story left you thinking, I want to hear your perspective. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because in stories like this, every detail matters, and your theory might uncover something others missed. And if you enjoy deep, chilling true crime stories that keep you questioning everything, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who loves suspense as much as you do, because the next story might be even darker.